Dr. Ji-won Park rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the screen again. The numbers were still there, glowing bright green against the dark monitor. She had been staring at the same data for 3 hours, and it still made no sense. The deep space. Observatory Station Kepler-7 was quiet this late at night. Most of the crew was sleeping, but Ji-won could not rest. The readings from planet K4429 were impossible. The 9th planet in the Kepler 4042 system was showing signs of life, but not just any life. These were artificial signals, patterns that could only come from intelligent beings. Ji-won stood up and walked to the coffee machine. Her hands shook slightly as she poured the hot liquid into her cup. She had been searching for signs of alien life for 10 years. Every scientist dreamed of being the first to find proof that humans were not alone in the universe. But now that the moment was here, she felt scared instead of excited. The planet was far away, almost 20 light years from Earth. It was cold and dark, orbiting at the edge of its solar system. According to all their models, nothing should be able to live there. The temperature was minus 200 degrees. There was no atmosphere worth talking about. Yet her instruments were picking up energy signatures that looked like cities, like technology, like civilization. Dr. Hyun-woo Kim walked into the observation room, yawning and carrying his own cup of coffee. He was Ji-won's research partner and her closest friend on the station. "Still awake?" Hyun-woo asked. "You have been at this desk for 12 hours. "Look at this," Ji-won said, pointing at her screen. "Tell me what you see." Hyun-woo leaned over and studied the data. His expression changed from sleepy to confused. "This cannot be right. The computer must be broken." "I thought so too. I ran the scan 5 times. I checked every piece of equipment. Everything is working perfectly. But Ji-won, this planet is a frozen rock. Even if there was life there once, it would be dead by now. The star is too far away to provide heat." Ji-won pulled up another screen showing the energy readings. Waves of organized signals pulsed across the display in complex patterns. "This is not random. This is not natural. Something intelligent is making these signals." Hyun-woo shook his head. "Equipment error. It has to be. Maybe space radiation is interfering with our sensors." "Then explain this," Ji-won said. She showed him a series of geometric shapes that appeared in the scans. Perfect circles, straight lines, and complex mathematical patterns covered sections of the planet's surface. "Radiation does not make geometry, Hyun-woo." Her colleague was quiet for a long moment. He knew Ji-won was the best xenobiologist in the fleet. If she said something was there, it probably was. But the implications were enormous. "If you are right," he said slowly, "this changes everything. We would not be alone anymore." "I know. That is why I need to be absolutely sure before I send this report to Earth." Meanwhile, 20 light-years away on Earth, Admiral Sun-ho Lee was having his own sleepless night. He stood in his office at Earth Command Headquarters looking out at the night sky through the large windows. Hundreds of ships moved through the orbital traffic lanes around Earth, carrying people and cargo to the colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. Humanity had spread through the solar system in the last 50 years. They had built cities under the ice of Europa and in the clouds of Venus. But they had never found another intelligent species. Despite decades of searching and listening, the universe seemed empty of other thinking beings. Admiral Lee's communication device beeped. A message from the deep space observatories was waiting for his attention. Most reports from the outer stations were routine: equipment status updates, resource requests, and scientific data that only specialists could understand. But this message was marked urgent and classified. It came from Dr. Ji-won Park at Kepler-7. Admiral Lee knew her reputation. She was careful and thorough, not the type to send false alarms. He opened the message and read it twice. Then he read it again. The report described artificial structures on planet K4429. energy signatures that suggested advanced technology, possible signs of intelligent life on a world that should be completely dead. Admiral Lee sat down heavily in his chair. If this was true, humanity was about to face the biggest moment in its history. First contact with alien intelligence would change society, politics, and everything people believed about their place in the universe. He thought about Captain Mina Choi, one of his best exploration commanders. She was currently on leave after completing a successful mission to map the outer asteroid belt. Captain Choi was brave, smart, and experienced with dangerous missions. If anyone could handle a first contact situation, it would be her. But first, he needed to verify Dr. Park's findings. Too many careers had been destroyed by false discoveries. Too many resources had been wasted chasing signals that turned out to be natural phenomena or equipment failures. Back on Kepler 7, Ji-won was preparing her final report. She had triple-checked every piece of data. The energy signatures were real. The geometric patterns were there. Something intelligent lived on K4429, and it was actively using advanced technology. She thought about what this meant for humanity. For centuries, people had wondered if they were alone. Philosophers, scientists, and ordinary citizens had debated the question. Were humans the only thinking species in the galaxy, or were there others out there among the stars? The answer was, apparently yes, there were others, but they were hiding on a frozen world at the edge of a distant solar system. Why would an advanced civilization choose to live in such a harsh place? What were they hiding from? Ji-won sent her report to Earth Command and copied it to the other deep space stations. Within hours, every major scientific institution would be analyzing her data. Within days, the news would reach the public. The universe was about to become a much more interesting and dangerous place. She did not know that her discovery would soon lead humanity into its greatest adventure, and that a young species would teach ancient beings how to dream again. The message traveled through space at the speed of light, carrying news that would change everything. On a distant frozen planet, ancient eyes watched the stars and waited. Just as they had waited for thousands of years, soon they would wait no longer. 6 months had passed since Dr. Ji-won Park sent her report to Earth. The exploration vessel New Horizon moved through deep space toward the Kepler 442 system, its crew of 12 specialists preparing for humanity's first potential contact with alien intelligence. Captain Minha Choi stood on the bridge, watching the stars shift as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The 9th planet, K4429, appeared on their main screen as a small, dark sphere. Even from this distance, their instruments could detect the strange energy patterns that Dr. Park had discovered. "Distance to target planet?" Captain Minha asked. 2 million kilometers and closing," replied Lieutenant Jae-hyun Seo from the navigation station. "We should reach orbital range in 6 hours." Dr. Tae-hyun Kang, the ship's communications officer, looked up from his console with excitement in his eyes. "Captain, I am picking up those energy signatures. They are much stronger now that we are closer. The patterns are definitely artificial." Captain Minha nodded. She had read Dr. Park's report dozens of times during the journey. The data was convincing, but seeing the proof with her own eyes felt different. Somewhere on that cold planet, non-human, intelligence was actively using technology that humanity barely understood. "Any response to our communication signals?" she asked. "Nothing yet. I have been broadcasting standard first contact messages in multiple languages and mathematical sequences. If anyone is listening, they are choosing not to answer, Engineer." Na Yun-young walked onto the bridge carrying a tablet full of sensor readings. "Captain, you need to see this. The planet is not what we expected." She activated the main display screen. Instead of a frozen wasteland, K4429 showed signs of massive construction. Geometric structures covered large areas of the surface. Giant towers reached up from the ground like crystal spears. Most surprising of all, rings of metal and energy surrounded the planet like artificial satellites. Those orbital platforms were not there in Dr. Park's original scans, Nayan said. Either our equipment is much better than the deep space observatories, or these structures appeared recently. Linguist Do Yun studied the images with fascination. Look at the design patterns. Everything follows mathematical principles that are beautiful and complex. This is not random construction. Whoever built this has an advanced understanding of engineering and art. Dr. Hyun-woo Kim, who had joined the mission after initially doubting Dr. Park's findings, shook his head in amazement. I owe Ji-won an apology. This is definitely the work of intelligent beings. The question is, why have they not responded to our messages? Captain Minha considered their options. Earth Command had given her strict instructions to attempt peaceful contact, but avoid any actions that might be seen as threatening. The problem was that humanity had no idea what these aliens might consider threatening. Continue broadcasting our messages, she ordered. Use all frequencies and transmission methods. Someone down there must be aware of our presence. As the New Horizon moved closer to K4429, the alien structures became more clear and impressive. The surface cities appeared to be made of living crystal that pulsed with internal light. Energy flowed between buildings like rivers of electricity. The orbital platforms rotated slowly, their purpose unknown but clearly important. Captain, Dr. Tae-hyun called out suddenly, I am detecting new energy patterns. They are different from what we observed before, more organized like language. Everyone on the bridge gathered around the communications station. Waves of complex signals flowed across the display screens. The patterns were unlike anything in Earth's databases, but they had rhythm and structure that suggested meaning. Can you decode any of it? Captain Minha asked. Not yet. The mathematical base seems to be different from human systems, but I am recording everything. Our language computers might find patterns if given enough data. The New Horizon entered orbit around K4429. From this close distance, the alien civilization was clearly visible and undeniably advanced. Their technology appeared to be based on principles that human science was only beginning to understand. Energy manipulation, crystal engineering, and construction methods that seemed to defy physics. Captain, Lieutenant Jae-hyun reported from his station. We have a problem. Multiple objects are approaching our position. They are moving fast. The main screen showed sleek vessels rising from the planet's surface. The ships were unlike anything humanity had ever built. They seemed to be made of the same crystal material as the surface cities, but they moved through space without any visible propulsion system. How many ships? Captain Minha asked, trying to keep her voice calm. 12. They are surrounding us in a perfect geometric formation. No weapons visible, but their technology is clearly superior to ours. Engineer Nayeon studied her instruments with growing concern. Captain, these ships are doing something impossible. They are phasing in and out of normal space. Our sensors lose them for seconds at a time, then they reappear in different positions. The alien vessels completed their formation around the New Horizon. They maintained a respectful distance but made it clear that the human ship was now surrounded. Each alien vessel was beautiful in its design, flowing curves and angular surfaces that seemed to shift and change as they moved. Dr. Tae-hyun suddenly looked up from his communications console. Captain, I am receiving a transmission. It is coming from the lead alien vessel. Put it through the speakers. The bridge filled with sounds unlike anything the crew had ever heard. Complex tones and harmonics flowed together in patterns that seemed almost musical. Then, to everyone's surprise, the sounds changed into recognizable human speech. Greetings, travelers from the third planet of Sol. We have been observing your approach. The voice was neither male nor female, but somehow both. It carried tones and emotions that human vocal cords could never produce. Captain Minha stepped forward. This is Captain Minha Choi of the Earth vessel New Horizon. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship. There was a long pause. When the alien voice spoke again, it carried a weight of sadness that made everyone on the bridge feel uncomfortable. "We know why you have come. Your species has finally developed the ability to reach the distant stars, but you should not have come here. Your species was not ready for what you will discover." "Ready for what?" Captain Minha asked. "Ready to learn that you are not alone. Ready to discover that the universe is far more dangerous and beautiful than your people imagine. Ready to understand that some knowledge cannot be forgotten once it is gained." The alien ships began to move in slow, complex patterns around the new horizon. Their crystal hulls pulsed with internal light that seemed to respond to emotions rather than mechanical systems. "We are the Vaelthara. We have watched your species grow from primitive hunters to star travelers. We have debated among ourselves whether this day would bring joy or sorrow to both our peoples." Captain Minha felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but the alien's words suggested that this discovery would bring challenges that her species might not be prepared to face. "May we speak further?" she asked. "Perhaps we could learn from each other." The pause was even longer this time. Finally, the Vaelthara voice returned. "Yes, Captain Minha Choi, come to our world, but know that once you see what we will show you, your species will be changed forever. There will be no going back to the simple time when you believed you were alone among the stars." Captain Minha stood at the edge of the landing platform, watching her crew prepare to step onto an alien world for the first time in human history. The Vaelthara had guided the New Horizon to a safe landing zone near their capital city. What the humans saw when they stepped outside their ship took their breath away. The city stretched as far as they could see, built from living crystal that pulsed with gentle light. Tall spires twisted upward like frozen music, their surfaces changing color in response to some unknown rhythm. Rivers of pure energy flowed between buildings instead of water, carrying information and power throughout the city. "Stay close to each other," Captain Minha told her crew. "We represent all of humanity here. Everything we do will be remembered for thousands of years." Dr. Jiwon Park had joined them for this historic moment, having traveled from Kepler 7 station as soon as the first contact was confirmed. She walked beside Captain Minha, her scientific instruments recording everything they encountered. "The theory architecture follows principles we do not understand," she whispered. "These buildings should collapse under their own weight, but they stand perfectly balanced." A group of Vaelthara approached the landing platform to greet them. The aliens were tall and graceful, with features that seemed to flow like water. Their skin appeared to be made of the same crystal material as their city, but it was alive and warm to the touch. When they moved, they left trails of soft light in the air. The leader of the group stepped forward. "I am Zephyrus, elder of the Third Circle. Welcome to Vaelthon, our capital city. We have prepared a place where you may rest and learn about our people." Captain Minha bowed respectfully. "Thank you for allowing us to visit your world. We hope this meeting will bring friendship between our species." Zephyrus made a sound that might have been laughter, but it carried notes of sadness. "Friendship. Yes, that is what your people always seek first. It is one of the things that makes you unique among the species we have observed." As they walked through the Crystal City, the Vaelthara explained their history. They were ancient beyond human understanding, having achieved interstellar travel when Earth's dinosaurs still roamed the planet. They had explored thousands of worlds and encountered hundreds of different intelligent species. "But we learned something terrible," Zephyrus said as they entered a vast library filled with floating crystals that contained information. "Every species we met eventually destroyed itself, or became so peaceful that it stopped growing. Intelligence seems to be a curse that leads to extinction or stagnation." Engineer Neon examined the crystal information storage devices with fascination. "Your technology is beautiful, but I do not understand how it works. What powers these crystals? The same force that powers our bodies and our city. We learned to manipulate energy at its most basic level long ago. But that knowledge came at a cost. When you can have anything you want, you stop wanting anything at all. Dr. Tae-hyun was recording their conversation while studying the alien language patterns. You said you have observed many species. Have you been watching humanity? For your entire recorded history. We have hidden ourselves on the 9th planets of systems throughout the galaxy, observing younger species to see if any would be different from all the others. Linguist Do-hyun looked confused. Why do you hide? With your advanced technology, you could help younger species avoid the mistakes of the past. Zephyrus led them to a viewing platform that showed the stars above Velthon. Because every time we tried to help, we made things worse. Species that received our technology became dependent on it and never learned to innovate for themselves. Species that learned of our existence either worshipped us as gods or feared us as threats. Contact with older civilizations destroys the natural growth that makes intelligence valuable. The humans spent several days in Velthon, learning about Valthara culture and history. What they discovered was both wonderful and sad. The Valthara had achieved everything they had ever dreamed of achieving. They had conquered disease, poverty, and war. They could create anything they needed from pure energy. They could travel between stars as easily as humans traveled between cities. But in achieving perfection, they had lost something essential. They no longer felt curiosity about the unknown. They no longer took risks or tried new things. They had become so safe and comfortable that they were slowly dying of boredom. We are the end result of intelligence, Zephyrus explained to Dr. Ji-won during one of their conversations. When you solve all problems, eliminate all challenges, and remove all uncertainty, you also eliminate the drive to continue existing. But you are still here, Dr. Ji-won pointed out. You are still exploring and learning. Only barely. Our population decreases every year as individuals choose to enter eternal sleep rather than continue living in a perfect world. We maintain our observatories out of habit more than genuine interest. Captain Minha began to understand why the Velthara had seemed sad when the humans first arrived. You think we will follow the same path. You think humanity will eventually become like you. Every species does. Intelligence creates tools. Tools solve problems. When all problems are solved, intelligence becomes unnecessary. It is the universal pattern we have observed across the galaxy. But as the days passed, the Valthara began to notice something different about their human guests. Engineer Naeon was not content to simply observe their technology. She asked endless questions about how things worked and suggested improvements that the Valthara had never considered. Her willingness to experiment with dangerous ideas both fascinated and confused them. Linguist Do-hyun had been working on a mathematical puzzle that Valthara scholars had been studying for centuries. Instead of using logical progression like the aliens, he approached it with human intuition and creative thinking. In 3 days, he found a solution that had eluded the ancient civilization for generations. How did you solve this? Zephyrus asked, staring at Do-hyun's work with amazement. I stopped trying to be logical and started guessing, Do-hyun replied. Sometimes the best way to find an answer is to try things that should not work. Dr. Tae-hyun had been analyzing Valthara communication methods and found ways to improve their efficiency by introducing controlled randomness that the aliens had eliminated from their systems centuries ago. Even Dr. Hyunwoo, who remained skeptical of many things he saw, offered perspectives that challenged Valthara assumptions about science and reality. Your species is remarkable, Zephyrus told Captain Minha on their final night in Velthon. You possess something we lost long ago. You still have the ability to surprise yourselves. What do you mean? You embrace chaos, conflict, and uncertainty as natural parts of existence. You do not try to eliminate these things. You learn to thrive within them. This may be the key to avoiding our fate. As the humans prepared to return to their ship, Zephyrus made an unprecedented decision. "We would like to send some of our people with you. Perhaps by working together we can remember what we have forgotten and you can avoid the trap that caught us." Captain Minha smiled. "We would be honored to have Valthara aboard our ship. Maybe together we can find new ways to grow that neither of our species could discover alone." For the first time in thousands of years, Zephyrus felt something that had almost been forgotten among his people. He felt hope for the future. 3 Valthara had joined the crew of the New Horizon for the journey back to Earth. They called themselves Keitha, Milros, and Vindera. Each one was thousands of years old, but they approached their time with humans like children discovering the world for the first time. Captain Mina watched with amusement as Engineer Nayan tried to explain her repair techniques to Keitha, the Valthara engineer. Nayan's approach to fixing problems involved taking things apart, trying different combinations, and accepting that some solutions would fail before the right one was found. "But why do you not calculate the correct solution first?" Keitha asked, watching Nayan rebuild a power converter for the 3rd time. "Because sometimes I do not know what the correct solution looks like until I try the wrong ones," Nayan replied, wiping grease from her hands. "Each failure teaches me something new about the problem." Keitha was fascinated by this approach. Valthara engineering had become so advanced that their machines could predict the outcome of any repair before it was attempted. They had eliminated failure from their work, but they had also eliminated the learning that comes from making mistakes. "Show me how to fail properly," Keitha said, picking up one of Nayan's tools. Meanwhile, Dr. Tae-hyun was working with Milros to improve communication systems between human and Valthara ships. The Valthara communication technology was perfect, transmitting information without any loss or distortion. But Tae-hyun had discovered that the perfection was actually a limitation. "Your system only works when both sides understand the context." "Perfectly," Tae-hyun explained. "But what happens when you need to communicate something completely new, something that has never been discussed before?" "We would create new protocols and distribute them to all users," Milros replied. "That takes time. What if you need to communicate right now in an emergency about something unexpected?" Tae-hyun showed Milros human communication methods that included redundancy, repetition, and even deliberate inefficiency. Human communication was messy and imperfect, but it was also flexible and creative. We used tone, gesture, context, and even silence to convey meaning, Tae-hyun said. "Our imperfect system allows us to communicate ideas that do not yet have words." Linguist Do-hyun was having similar experiences with Vindara, a Valthara scholar. They were working together to translate ancient texts from other species that the Valthara had encountered. "This passage makes no logical sense," Vindara said, pointing to symbols on a crystal display. "The mathematical relationships are contradictory." Do-hyun studied the text with fresh eyes. What if it is not meant to be logical? What if this species used metaphor and emotion to record their history instead of facts and figures? But how can you preserve accurate information using metaphors? You cannot preserve facts, but you can preserve truth. Sometimes the most important. Things about an experience cannot be measured or calculated. Do-hyun began translating the text as poetry instead of technical documentation. Suddenly, the contradictions made sense. The ancient species had been recording their feelings about their history, not just the events themselves. Back on Earth, Admiral Sunho was dealing with the political implications of first contact. World governments wanted immediate access to Valthara technology. Military leaders wanted to know if the aliens posed a threat. Scientists wanted to study every aspect of the advanced civilization. "We need to be careful," Admiral Sunho told the United Earth Council. "The Valthara have warned us that receiving advanced technology too quickly can be dangerous for a developing species." "But think of what we could accomplish," argued President Chen of the Asian Federation. "We could solve climate change, cure diseases, explore the entire galaxy within our lifetimes. And then what? Admiral Sunho asked. The Valthara solved all those problems thousands of years ago. Now they are dying of boredom because they have nothing left to achieve. The debate continued for weeks. Some leaders wanted to take Valthara, technology by force if necessary. Others wanted to reject alien influence completely. But Admiral Sunho knew that the real answer lay in the reports he was receiving from the New Horizon. Captain Minha sent daily updates about the collaboration between human and Valthara crew members. The reports showed something remarkable happening. The aliens were not just sharing their technology with humans. They were learning human approaches to problem solving. When Keitha tried to repair a damaged sensor using Neon's trial and error method, she discovered a more efficient solution than the one her perfect calculations had predicted. The willingness to accept failure as part of the learning process had led to genuine innovation. When Milros adopted Taihyun's inefficient communication protocols, he found that the extra redundancy allowed for creative interpretation that led to new ideas. The imperfection in human communication was actually a feature, not a bug. When Vindara began approaching ancient texts with Do-hyun's emotional intelligence instead of pure logic, she unlocked meanings that had been hidden for thousands of years. Something unprecedented is happening, Captain Minha reported to Admiral Sunho. The Valthara are not just teaching us. They are learning from us. Our human flaws are helping them rediscover abilities they lost long ago. Dr. Ji-won had returned to her research station but remained in constant communication with the joint human-Valthara crew. Her analysis of the cultural exchange was revealing patterns that neither species had expected. Humans have something the Valthara lost when they achieved perfection, she wrote in her report. We have maintained our connection to chaos, uncertainty, and controlled failure. These things that we consider weaknesses are actually our greatest strengths. The breakthrough came when the joint crew encountered a genuine problem that neither human nor Valthara methods could solve alone. A solar flare damaged critical systems on the New Horizon while they were traveling through an empty region of space. The ship was stranded light years from the nearest help. Valthara technology could diagnose the problem perfectly, but their solutions required resources that were not available on the ship. Human engineering could improvise solutions from available materials, but lacked the precision needed for some repairs. Working together, Neon and Keitha found a hybrid approach. They used Valthara precision to identify exactly what needed to be fixed, then used human creativity to find unexpected ways to fix it with whatever materials they had available. I have never seen anything like this, Keitha told Captain Minha as they worked. Neon takes broken pieces and combines them in ways that should not work, but do work. She finds possibility in impossibility. The successful repair was more than just a practical victory. It was proof that the two species could accomplish things together that neither could achieve alone. Dr. Taehyun and Milros had worked together to maintain communication with Earth, despite the damaged equipment. Their hybrid communication system was more reliable than either species had used before. Do-hyun and Vindara had discovered new techniques for rapid language learning by combining logical analysis with intuitive understanding. We are creating something new, Captain Minha reported to Earth. Not human technology or Valthara technology, but something that combines the best aspects of both approaches. Admiral Sunho read the report with growing excitement. This was the answer to humanity's dilemma. They did not need to choose between accepting alien technology or rejecting it completely. They could create a partnership that strengthened both species. Prepare for full cultural exchange protocols, he ordered his staff. But we do this slowly and carefully. We want to learn from the Valthara mistakes, not repeat them. As the New Horizon continued its journey home, the crew began to realize that they were not just carrying news of first contact back to Earth. They were carrying the seeds of a new kind of civilization that had never existed before in the galaxy. The Valthara had spent millions of years searching for a species that could teach them how to grow again. Humanity had spent its entire history wondering if they were alone in the universe. Neither species had expected that the answer to both questions would be the same. They had found each other. The warning came without explanation. Every Valthara across their hidden worlds received the same message at exactly the same moment. Ancient systems that had been dormant for millions of years were awakening. The Guardians were stirring. Zephyrus contacted the New Horizon immediately. His usual calm voice carried notes of panic that the human crew had never heard before. "Captain Minha, you must return to Valthon immediately. Bring your crew and our people with you. The Forbidden Protocol has been activated." "What is the Forbidden Protocol?" Captain Minha asked. "Something we hoped would never happen again. The systems left by our predecessors have detected our contact with your species. The Guardians are awakening to eliminate what they perceive as a threat to galactic stability." The New Horizon changed course immediately, racing back toward K4429. During the journey, Katha explained the terrifying history that most Valthara tried to forget. Before our species achieved perfection, we were ruled by the Shadavrai, beings of pure logic who saw emotion and chaos as diseases to be cured. They created the Guardian systems to preserve galactic peace by eliminating any species that showed signs of dangerous unpredictability. Engineer Nyon looked confused. "But you said the Valthara were peaceful. Why would the Guardians consider you a threat?" "Not us alone. The threat is our alliance with humanity. Your species displays all the characteristics that the Guardian protocols were designed to eliminate: curiosity, aggression, unpredictability, and the willingness to take risks that could destabilize entire star systems." Dr. Tae-hyun was monitoring communications as they approached the Kepler 442 system. "I am detecting massive energy signatures throughout the region. Something very large is moving toward K4429. When the New Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the crew saw a sight that chilled them to their bones. Enormous dark ships, each one larger than a human city, were emerging from hidden positions throughout the star system. The Guardian fleet had been waiting in the space between dimensions for millions of years. "How many ships are there?" Captain Minha asked. Lieutenant Jae-hyun checked his sensors with disbelief. "Over 200 confirmed contacts, and more appearing every minute. Captain, each one of those ships could destroy Earth's entire space fleet single-handed." The Guardian vessels began moving toward K4429 in perfect formation. Their hulls absorbed light instead of reflecting it, making them appear like holes cut out of space itself. No weapons were visible on their surfaces, but the ships radiated power that made human technology seem like stone tools by comparison. Zephyrus contacted them from Valthon's surface. "The Guardian systems have analyzed your species and determined that humanity represents an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. They will destroy both our worlds to prevent the spread of what they call the chaos infection." "Can your people fight them?" Captain Minha asked. "We have tried before. The Guardians cannot be reasoned with or negotiated with. They are pure logic without emotion, designed to preserve order at any cost. Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses." But as the Guardian fleet approached K4429, something unexpected happened. The lead Guardian ship sent a communication to all vessels in the system. "Species designation human will be terminated. Species designation Valthara will be terminated. Chaos infection will be eliminated. Galactic stability will be preserved." The message was broadcast in perfect human English and flawless Valthara harmonics. The Guardians had learned both languages instantly and completely. "At least they are polite about wanting to kill us," Engineer Neon muttered. The first Guardian attack came without warning. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the dark ships, striking Valthara orbital platforms and reducing them to glowing vapor. The ancient civilization's defenses activated automatically, creating shields of crystallized space around their planet. But the Guardian weapons cut through Valthara's shields like they were made of paper. Within minutes, the beautiful orbital rings around K4429 were gone. Their shields are not working, Dr. Taehyun observed. The Guardian weapons seem designed specifically to counter Valthara technology. Captain Minha made a decision that would have terrified any rational person. Take us into the battle zone. Maybe our ships are different enough to make a difference. Captain, we have 12 crew members and one small exploration vessel. They have hundreds of city-sized warships. Sometimes the best way to win is to try things that should not work, Captain Minha said, remembering Do-hyun's approach to problem-solving. The New Horizon dove into the battle, its small size allowing it to avoid the massive energy beams that were destroying larger Valthara ships. But human weapons had no effect on the Guardian vessels. Their energy shields and armor were designed to resist any form of attack. This is hopeless, Lieutenant Jae-hyun said, as another wave of Valthara defenders were eliminated. We need a miracle. That was when Engineer Neon had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. What if we stop trying to fight them directly? The Guardians are pure logic, right? They predict and counter every logical attack. What are you suggesting? Captain Minha asked. I am suggesting we do something completely illogical. Something so stupid that their computers will not see it coming. Neon began modifying the New Horizons systems in ways that made no scientific sense. She connected the life support system to the weapons array. She rerouted navigation through the coffee maker. She turned the entire ship into a chaotic mess of interconnected systems that followed no logical pattern. Nayeon, you are going to kill us all, Dr. Taehyun warned. Maybe, but if this works, we might actually hurt them. The modified New Horizon approached the largest Guardian ship. Instead of trying to penetrate its shields, Neon fired their weapons at empty space while playing music through the communication array and venting atmosphere in random patterns. The Guardian ship's computer systems tried to analyze the human ship's behavior and predict its next move. But there was no pattern to predict. The New Horizon was acting in ways that violated every principle of logic and strategy. For the first time in millions of years, a Guardian ship hesitated. In that moment of confusion, Neon's impossible weapons configuration somehow created a resonance frequency that disrupted the Guardian's dimensional shields. The massive dark ship flickered and became vulnerable. All Valthara ships, target the flickering vessel now, Captain Minha broadcast. The combined firepower of the surviving Valthara fleet struck the Guardian ship while its defenses were down. The ancient weapon of logic and order exploded in a spectacular display of light and energy. But there were still hundreds of Guardian ships, and they were already adapting to counter Neon's chaotic tactics. We need more chaos, Neon said. More unpredictability than one ship can provide. Dr. Taehyun had been studying the Guardian communication patterns. I have an idea. What if we teach the Valthara to be illogical? Using the communication systems that he and Milros had developed, Taehyun began broadcasting instructions to every Valthara ship in the battle. Instead of fighting with their usual precision and coordination, he told them to act randomly, to make mistakes on purpose, to embrace the chaos that their species had spent millions of years trying to eliminate. The results were immediate and spectacular. Valthara ships began moving in patterns that made no sense. They fired their weapons at empty space, flew in circles, and communicated using nonsense poetry instead of tactical data. The Guardian fleet, designed to counter logical opponents, found itself facing an entire civilization that had suddenly become completely illogical. It is working, Keitha called out from her engineering station. The Guardian ships are confused. Their targeting systems cannot predict where our ships will go next. Linguist Do-hyun joined the effort by broadcasting human music, jokes, and random thoughts to every ship in the battle. Soon, Valthara warriors were fighting to the rhythm of human rock music while reciting nonsense poetry in ancient alien languages. The battle became less like a military engagement and more like a chaotic dance. Ships spun through space in impossible formations, weapons fired in patterns that spelled out dirty jokes in mathematical equations, and communications channels filled with laughter instead of tactical reports. The Guardian systems, faced with an entire star system that had collectively decided to ignore logic, began to malfunction. Their perfect order could not cope with perfect chaos. One by one, the dark ships began to shut down, their computer minds overwhelmed by the impossibility of what they were trying to process. The final Guardian ship sent one last message before its systems failed completely. Error. Error. Chaos infection has become fun. This does not compute. Shutting down until logical universe restored. As the last Guardian ship went dark and drifted powerless through space, the human and Valthara crews looked around at what they had accomplished. They had defeated an enemy that had been invincible for millions of years by refusing to fight the way they were supposed to fight. 1 year had passed since the Battle of the Guardians, as historians were already calling it. The galaxy was a very different place than it had been before humans, and Valthara learned to work together. Dr. Jiwon Park stood on the observation deck of Research Station Unity, watching ships from dozens of different species dock at the massive orbital platform. The station orbited halfway between Earth and K4429, serving as the first joint research facility in galactic history. Another new species arrived this morning, her research partner Dr. Hyunwoo Kim said, joining her at the window. The Nethrani, from the Vega system. They heard about our alliance and want to join the partnership. Jiwon smiled as she watched the graceful Nethrani vessel, shaped like a living flower, extend docking pedals to connect with the station. 18 months ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we have contact with 47 different species. The discovery of the Human-Valthara alliance had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Species that had been hiding on their own 9th planets for thousands of years suddenly began revealing themselves. The defeat of the Guardian systems had proven that the ancient rules no longer applied. Captain Minha, now promoted to Admiral, walked through the corridors of her flagship, the Harmony. The massive vessel was a perfect blend of human and Valthara technology, crewed by beings from 12 different worlds. She was preparing for the next phase of galactic exploration. Admiral, called Commander Keitha, the Valthara engineer who had become Minha's second-in-command. The joint exploration fleet is ready for departure. All ships report ready for the journey to the Andromeda contact zone. Excellent. How many species are participating in this mission? 26, including 3 that we discovered just last week. The Andromedans sent word that they are eager to meet the alliance that taught the galaxy how to laugh. Admiral Minha looked out at her fleet with pride. Human ships flew alongside Valthara crystal vessels, Nethrani flower ships, and dozens of other designs that represented the incredible diversity of galactic intelligence. Each species brought unique perspectives and capabilities to their shared missions. On Earth, Admiral Sunho had been promoted to head of the Galactic Contact Initiative. His office overlooked the construction of humanity's first interstellar city, where beings from across the galaxy came to study human approaches to problem-solving. The economic reports are remarkable, his aide, Lieutenant Jaewon, reported. Trade between alliance species has increased by 400% in the last year. The exchange of ideas and technologies is creating innovations that none of our species could have achieved alone. Admiral Sunho nodded, but his attention was focused on a more important development. What about the social integration programs? Beyond all expectations, sir. Human schools now teach Valthara mathematics and crystal engineering. Valthara. Children are learning human art and music. The cultural exchange is creating hybrid approaches to science, art, and philosophy that are revolutionizing both species. The success of the alliance was most visible in the joint research projects scattered across known space. Dr. Tae-hyun and his Valthara partner Milros had established a communications network that connected every Alliance world instantly. Their hybrid technology combined human creativity with Valthara precision to create something neither species could have built alone. Engineer Neon had opened the first Chaos Engineering Academy, where young beings from dozens of species learned to solve problems by embracing failure and uncertainty. Her most successful students were often the ones who failed the most spectacular ways while learning. The key to innovation is not being afraid to break things, she told her current class, which included humans, Valthara, and 6 other species. Every great discovery started with someone trying something that everyone else thought was impossible. Linguist Do-hyun had become the galaxy's first professor of intuitive communication. His research into non-logical language patterns had unlocked the ability to communicate concepts that had never been expressible in words. Art, emotion, and creativity could now be shared directly between species with completely different cognitive structures. But perhaps the most important development was happening in the hidden depths of space, where ancient species were emerging from millions of years of isolation. The eternal dreamers, beings of pure thought who had retreated from physical existence, sent their first communication to the Alliance in 3 million years. "We had forgotten what hope felt like," their message said. "Your chaotic approach to existence has reminded us why consciousness is worth preserving." The architects, who had been building perfect structures in empty space for eons, began incorporating deliberate imperfections into their designs after studying human art. Their new creations were considered the most beautiful in galactic history. Even the mysterious observers, who had been watching galactic civilization from outside normal space and time, began participating in Alliance activities. They revealed that they had been waiting for millions of years for a species that could teach older civilizations how to grow again. "Your species has accomplished something we thought was impossible," the observers told Do-hyun during his appointment as galactic ambassador. "You have reversed the universal pattern of stagnation that affects all intelligent life." The appointment ceremony took place on Unity Station, attended by representatives from every known species in the galaxy. Do-hyun stood before the assembly, thinking about how much had changed since Dr. Jiwon first detected those impossible signals from K4429. 18 months ago, humanity believed we were alone in a cold, empty universe, he began his speech. Today, we know that the universe is full of intelligence, creativity, and possibility. But the most important thing we have learned is that no species has to face the future alone. The audience included beings of crystal and energy, creatures of living metal and pure thought, species that breathed methane and others that fed on starlight. Despite their incredible diversity, they all shared something that had been missing from the galaxy for millions of years. They shared hope for the future. The ancient myths spoke of a young species that would burn like stars and forge new paths. "Through the void," Do-hyun continued. But the myths were wrong about one thing. It was never about one species changing the galaxy. It was about all species learning to change together. Zephyrus, now serving as the Valthara representative to the Galactic Alliance Council, felt emotions that his people had thought were lost forever. Joy, excitement, and curiosity flowed through the crystal cities of Valthon as young Valthara prepared for adventures that their ancestors had never imagined. "We spent millions of years perfecting ourselves," he said to the assembly. "But perfection is just another word for being finished. Humanity taught us that being finished is the same as being dead." The ceremony concluded with the signing of the Galactic Growth Accords, a document that established principles for continued exploration and development throughout the galaxy. The most important principle was elegantly simple. No species shall be considered too advanced to learn from others, and no challenge shall be considered too difficult to attempt. As the celebration continued, Admiral Minha received a report that filled her with excitement. Long-range sensors had detected signals from the Magellanic Clouds, the small galaxies that orbited the Milky Way. The signals suggested the presence of intelligent life that was completely different from anything they had encountered. Prepare. The long-range exploration fleets, she ordered. It looks like our work is just beginning. Dr. Jiwon returned to her laboratory on Unity Station, where she continued her research into the fundamental nature of intelligence and consciousness. Her work with dozens of different species had revealed patterns that suggested something profound about the universe itself. Intelligence, she had discovered, was not just a random development of evolution, it was the universe's way of understanding itself. Every thinking being added to the cosmic conversation that,